Hello, everybody. Welcome to this live taping of the Bliss Code podcast. I got my girl, Emily Paulsen, here with me. Hey, Emily.
Hello, happy to
Emily,
be here.
thank you for coming to chat with me, to have this candid conversation with me and my live audience and my listeners who are listening to this on the podcast who weren't privileged enough to be in my group. So if you're not in our free Facebook group, then head on over to our website, theblisscode.net, and click on that link to join our free community. So, Emily, you're a branding expert. What
Mhm.
is branding, girl? What is branding? Let us
Yeah,
understand this.
the word branding gets thrown around so much, and I think
Mhm,
that everybody has a different idea of what branding can be, and I like to level set with a definition that I think is the reality of how branding really exists in the real world. So I think
mhm,
about branding as the first and lasting impression of your business. So, on the front side
mm.
of that, the first impression, people are often interacting with your brand before they're interacting with you. So, people find your website, they see your social media, maybe they hear a podcast, they're interacting with some brand element first. And they're using that impression, they're using that interaction to decide whether they want to engage with you or your business further. So, it really is the
Okay.
first impression before somebody has a chance to know you personally. And on the back end of that, when we do become customers or, we take the next step with a brand, whether we have a really great experience or a not so great experience, we associate that with the entire brand. So, for example, like if I go to Dry Bar and I
Mm.
get a blowout that I don't love, I don't say to my friends, like, oh, I was really disappointed in Melissa at Dry Bar. I say, I don't really like Dry Bar, right?
I'm not going back to Dry Bar anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going there again. They don't get it. They don't get my hair, whatever. So I've
Yeah.
associated that one experience with the full brand. So, on the back end, it really is the lasting impression of how people understand and remember your business as well. That's how I think about
Okay.
branding.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, first of all, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I need to talk about that first too. And when when I knew that we were gonna do this at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was like, okay, I gotta get up earlier because I'm like, oh, I'm an earth girl and I want to get up by the sunlight. You know what I'm saying? I actually set an alarm this morning and I was like, okay, let me get myself together. Let me be chipper and ready and hydrated and ready for Emily. So, what is your morning routine like?
Yeah, it's 8 a.m. here. I'm in Chicago. So I feel you.
Mhm.
And I was just
Dang,
talking to
wait
myself.
a minute.
Yeah. I was just
I
talking to
forgot.
myself around the house because I was like, "Oh, I need to make sure I've used my voice before I start this 8 a.m." So, normally, most days, I get up at 5 and I go there's an amazing, like, gym, kind of wellness studio space here in Chicago that I'm a member of. So, I
Mhm.
5, I leave my house at 6:30, I walk there. It's like a 25-minute walk. I do a workout class. They have a co-working space. Sometimes I work there. So that's like, I would say 4 days a week. Realistically, I do that. Mondays are tougher. Like I've just given up. There's so much rhetoric in the workout space and just everything with morning routines. Like never miss a Monday, hit Monday hard. That does not work for me. Like Monday needs to
Mhm.
be a slow roll into, it's too, I don't want a Sunday scary type of lifestyle. So I like having
Yeah.
a Monday morning that's a little bit more intuitive versus like forcing myself to do a certain thing at 5 in the morning. But typically that's my routine.
Yeah. I like that because I've actually been thinking about like routines and like the things that we do every single day and it's like that's your almost like your personal branding, right? It's almost like building an avatar like this is what this person does and this is how this person presents to the world. Like my son, he's so cool. I just love him. He's 18, he's getting ready for college, and he has decided in his mind, like, okay, I'm going to already kind of like build myself and look like a college student. So whenever he goes somewhere, he's like taking a book and like a notepad with him and like his backpack or whatever, like he's a college student. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about that, like, as you're talking about your morning routine, it's like that's who you are. You know what I'm saying? And I know you and I have had conversations about building women's brands for like who it is that they are and who it is that they're like appearing to the world so that they can show up more authentically. So, talk a little bit about like, I guess, how a person and their personality and who they are as a human and who they are as a business owner, like why is that important to show up in their branding?
Yeah. This is a complicated topic, and I get a lot of questions
Mm,
about this, like the difference between a personal brand, a business brand, how much of yourself do you have to share in a brand, and I have a lot of
mm.
feelings about it. So, okay, first things
Good.
first. Yeah. There, I think we think of these as two extremes. Like people think of a personal brand as somebody like an Amy Porterfield or a Jenna Kutcher or somebody who has really built an entire brand around their name, their face. They share a lot about their personal lives, weight loss stuff, miscarriage stuff, showing their kids' faces, right? All these pieces where it's like they themselves feel like the brand. And that goes back to a lot of what you just said, like sharing your morning routine, what time you like to go to bed, like what are your
Yeah.
productivity hacks, right? Like they've really built a brand fully around themselves as an individual. And then on the other side of that, we have business brands, which that's where there's a company name that's not tied to any person. We might not know as the audience or the consumers what person is exactly behind the business or like who is the founder. So that is more disconnected from any individual. I
Okay.
think for most entrepreneurs and small business owners, the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle of that. Like having
Okay.
that authenticity, as you said, being able to use your voice, your unique expertise is your business's most valuable asset. So it is really important to get clarity on what unique combination of skills, talent, background, personality, experience, like that unique package that you bring to the world through your work is incredibly special. So, getting clarity on exactly what that is, how you can articulate that uniqueness to your audience, like that's the secret sauce to building that
Okay.
real connection and to attracting people who want that exact package, right? Like, there's a lot of people who do, I'm in branding. There are a lot of other people who are in branding. There are a lot of
That's
people in
true.
every field. So, the way that you can kind of cut through that noise and resonate with the clients that are most aligned for you is by leaning into that authentic, unique voice. And you can do that by either sharing a lot about your personal life if that feels good to you, or you can do that without sharing a lot about your personal life. But when you're centering everything around that unique expertise and why that's valuable to the people you want to serve, like that's really, I think that framework helps people not get so caught up in like how much of me do I have to be talking about. Just think about how
Yeah.
you can talk about your expertise in a way that your audience, will connect with.
Okay. So you said I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
What is the reason you're like I have a lot to say about that? I know you said people struggle with that. Are they not
Yeah.
getting it right somewhere?
I think at least a lot of women have shared this with me. Like they see somebody like an Amy Porterfield or Marie Forleo, or, there's a million examples, and they think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like I don't really want to be that open on Instagram. I don't really want to talk about my partner or, show these incredibly intimate details. I don't want to share my breastfeeding journey, like these things we see
Mm-hmm.
other people
Mm-hmm.
doing. So they fear, like, will I not be able to connect with people? Is nobody going to pay attention to me? Like, is this not compelling enough? And
Right.
like, that makes me so sad because that's just not true, right? Like, having a personal brand that is extremely intimate is one path you can take, but it is not better than any other path. And really,
That's
like, the
true.
secret sauce to this, I know I said it's your unique expertise, and that's true, but storytelling, like sharing that unique expertise through stories with your audience, which don't have to have anything to do with you as an individual, you can do that and kind of detach yourself from the brand. And I use the phrase often when I work with people, like, your brand is not your biography. It's a tool to drive business. They're two separate things. So being able to kind of detach emotionally and not feel like
Mm-hmm.
you are the business. You're a really valuable asset of your business, but the business isn't you. I think that really helps women not just form a brand that's going to be successful for a really long time, but also to just
Mm-hmm.
exist as a business person. You don't take everything so
That's
personally. You
true.
can detach, like when things are going really well in the business or when things are going not so well in the business. That's not a reflection on you and your worth as a woman or as a person. Your business is separate from you. So I think
Yeah.
that mindset of detaching things is a lot healthier than thinking like the brand is me, I am the business. If I'm making $1 million, I personally am incredible. And if I'm making nothing, I'm worthless. That's a really
Mm.
dangerous mindset to get into.
Right, right. And I see a lot, and I've even done this myself. I see brands saying we and our, even if the person is like a solo entrepreneur. Is
Mhm.
that okay?
Yes, I think so. I mean, in some
Mhm.
cases, you can think about like there are a lot of solopreneurs who, yes, you may be the only person performing those tasks in your business, but do you outsource your bookkeeping? Like, do you have, maybe you
Mhm.
have a contractor who helps you? Do you have somebody who helps you with legal support? Like very few of us are literally a one woman show. Like we have support
Yeah.
people, we have
Yeah.
services. So it is sort of a collective we. And it goes back to what you were saying with your son. It's kind of like act as if you have a vision that one
Yes.
day there will more people, or maybe you want to have an intern or you have a VA or whatever. I think it's almost a nice nod to like the contribution those people have to your business, right? Electric Collab isn't me by myself. I have a lot of tools and people and resources that I rely on to make this whole thing run. So I think it's totally fine to, say we, us, our. It makes sense to me.
Okay, okay. I like that. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. So tell me about I have like questions here that I'm looking at and you're hitting on like so many points. I'm getting so excited. So,
I
okay,
love it.
okay. Let's go back to this. Let's stay focused. So, you talk about how to build a brand that has an emotional connection for people, right?
Hmm.
And we talked about you not necessarily being the face of your brand and
Hmm.
sharing all of your stuff. If you're not the face of your brand, right, and you're not sharing all those personal things like the women in the examples that you gave, how is it that you still make that emotional connection with your audience then?
Hmm. We all buy based on emotion. We might justify with logic to ourselves or to
Mm-hmm.
our partner or, to somebody else, but we buy because something makes us feel something. And if you really like strip down human decision making, we decide to do something if we think the reward for doing that outweighs the sacrifice. So even my morning routine, I don't like
Ooh.
getting up at 5 in the morning. Like it sucks every time, right? For like 10 minutes. Like it's terrible. I want to keep laying there. It's dark. My bed is warm, whatever. That's a sacrifice for me to get up, push myself. Like nobody's asking me to. I'm making that sacrifice because I believe that the reward of starting my day with energy, getting to the gym early, seeing all my friends in the workout class, like that reward is worth the sacrifice. And it's the same when people invest in us. If I charge somebody X amount of money for a website, spending that money is a sacrifice. So they're only
Right.
going to do that if they genuinely believe that the sacrifice they're making is worth the reward they're getting with the new website in that case, or whatever any of us sell. Like that's really the story we have to tell. And I think the piece of ethical connection, like sometimes when I say things like that, people get a
Mm-hmm.
little, they feel like, oh, that seems a little manipulative. Like we're trying to convince people or persuade people to make some sacrifice with us to get this thing on the other side. And like it's not that. It's not manipulative
Mm-hmm.
as long as you believe that the reward you're giving people is valuable, right? Like you have
Right.
to know in your heart and have the evidence and the social proof and the past client experience to say like, yeah, if you give me $10,000 for this new brand and website experience, here's everything you're going to get. You're going to charge higher prices, you'll attract more aligned people, you'll get bigger opportunities, right? Like it is worth it. I believe it's worth it.
Yeah.
I've seen what happens for other people. So when you genuinely believe that, then it's like, this reward is so good. I want everybody who wants this to have access to it. And that kind of shifts our mindset around the conversation. Like, we're making something really important, something that's really needed, available to the people who want it. And the way that we do that, like the way that we connect those dots for them and show them, that the sacrifice is worth the reward, is through emotional connection, through storytelling, through making our brand feel like a person, whether we're showing up there a lot as a individual woman or not. It's, what is the tone of voice? What's the personality? What are the values? Like, what does this brand stand for? What do they stand against? When you can really establish humanity in your brand, then you can tell that story, make that connection for people so they're moved to take action, believing that they're going to get what they need from your business.
Whew, I love that. So many takeaways. It's only unethical if you don't believe in it. If you're selling something that, if
Yeah,
you're,
like our
if,
instinct
if
there. Yeah.
yeah, it's
I mean, if
it's
you are
not
questioning
the
it.
way you do it.
Mhm. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's, do you believe in your product? Do you believe in your service? Do you believe in what you're selling? I love that. And I love when you said that, we buy with our emotion, does the sacrifice um is the reward outweighing the sacrifice? I
Hmm.
love that. That's so cool. So what made you decide that you were going to focus on women entrepreneurs?
Yes, that was okay, it wasn't a tough journey internally. It was tough for me to get to a place where I was willing to say that out loud. So,
Mm.
I've worked in corporate for 14 years before I started Electric Collab. And I worked with lots of different types of people over that time, but a lot of men. And I like men. I'm married to a man. I have no problem working with men. There's a lot. Yeah, like working with men is great. But when I started my own business, anybody who's done that, it's hard, right? Like, mentally, emotionally, there are challenges when you are starting something new by yourself. And I think a big thing that can motivate you to keep going is, one, loving the work, and two, loving and feeling really connected to the people that you're serving. And I was just naturally attracting women as my first few clients. Like, it was woman after woman, and getting, like, brand building can be so therapeutic and emotional and immersive for people, because I'm reflecting back to you all these things that make you really special and an expert and amazing, and we don't often receive that type of reflection, especially as
Mhm.
women in our professions. So it just really moved me to work with these women and feel like I was pulling something out of them and really building them up in a genuine, real way by saying, like, no, you're amazing at this, or like, look at the results that you're getting that nobody else, like, these beat industry standard by a mile, like, we need to talk about this. You need to be shouting this from the rooftops. Like, people need you. People need this. Being able to share that with women and seeing how they responded, people crying, people sending me gifts. Like, it was just
Whew.
yeah, it was so, like, fulfilling to me,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, this is what I love. These are the people I want to help. Like, and you can also look at all the statistics, like, women make less, we get less funding, more female businesses go out of business. Like, and it's a very complex thing of why that happens. But if
Yeah.
I can provide something that moves the needle at all in favor of women in business, I want to do that. So that's the reality of how I actually feel, but still,
Yeah.
like, putting women entrepreneurs on my website and on my Instagram and really establishing myself around those words felt hard, because I also want to be inclusive. And it's like, if you're focusing on any group, you're kind of excluding the other group. And I've had a couple male clients and they've been great. And one of them said to me that, we worked together, and he was a contact from somebody I knew. And then he looked at my website and he was personally offended that I had the word women
Oh.
on there. Like, he was like, I've had such a great time working with you and I want to tell everyone I've worked with you, but I'm not a woman. I don't identify as a woman. Like, I'm not going to send people to your website. And that was a real, like,
Wow.
I kind of freaked out. I was like, oh my God, like that makes me feel horrible too. I don't want someone to be personally offended that I'm excluding them from this. So yeah, it's been a journey. I talked to Jade. We both know her and she's a colleague. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She helps me with SEO on my own website and others. And like SEO goes into this too, right? Like there are women who are searching for brand and website designers who work with women. So yeah, I've gone to her probably 11 times and been like, this is okay, right? I can say this, right? I'm not a bad person. And also it's like, if you identify as a woman, I want you to feel welcome here. So I do think
Yeah.
that's a really long answer, but it's because I get in my head so much about it. They are the people I
Yeah.
want to help, but I feel I just certainly wouldn't want to exclude anybody.
Yeah. And I feel that. And thank you for being transparent about that. I think that's a struggle that all of us entrepreneurs go through. And it's not just if you've decided to work with women, it's if you've decided, hey, this is my target audience, this is who I'm focusing on. And
Mm-hmm.
this is who my ideal client is. This is my core client base. And that's okay. It's part of your specialty. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing that with us.
Of
So
course.
you you talked about, and we've had conversations before about cohesion in the brand, and I know that you do website and branding. You want to make sure that it's like a complete package, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I automatically hear the word holistic. And, and I'm so
Yep.
happy about that. Why is it important to make sure that it's cohesive? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. So if we go back to the beginning and think about our brand as that first and lasting impression of our business, we
Hmm.
want a brand that is recognizable and memorable over time. And if we're constantly changing things, playing with different color palettes, changing up our logo, messing with our homepage of our website all the time, we're not allowing anything to last long enough to become recognizable and memorable in the eyes of our audience. Like for us, we've been here the whole time, right? So it's exciting as a business owner to make changes and freshen things up and, move things around. But we have to remember that people outside of our business are barely paying attention to us. And, they see us on Instagram among millions of other posts that they're seeing. Like there's so much content out there. And really, the only way to kind of build up that recognition is to use things consistently. So, having a color palette that one is based in the emotions that you want to evoke, like color psychology is real. So, all these
Yes.
elements need to be crafted with a lot of intention. But once you have them crafted all the way, brand strategy through your visual identity and design, through your website and online presence, like once you've built all of those things, to be really cohesive, keeping that whole package in mind, then you want to use it consistently everywhere so that people can really latch onto it and you become
Okay.
sticky in the minds of your people.
Okay. So it's like creating the identity, creating
Mhm.
something recognizable. Like, if you see Marge Simpson with her hair down, you're going to be like, who is that? Or if it's no longer blue, it's going to be
Yes.
like, is that Marge? Or did Homer get a new wife? Because you're expecting her to have hair high to the sky, pinned up, and blue.
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
That
perfect
makes sense.
example. Yeah, and that's why like we see huge corporations, if there's a merger or a buyout or something happens where there is a shift in their branding, they spend so much money in marketing dollars to make sure that we all like catch on to the change, right? Like you'll see
Mm,
a huge influx of commercials and advertising and all these things because we form these relationships with a business based on the brand that we recognize. And if that
mhm.
changes, it takes a lot of effort to get people to stay on the ride with you and even understand like, oh, this is still Marge. This is the same thing that I remember or that I bought from 10 years ago or, whatever. So yeah, I think it is actually a lot lower lift from an effort, energy, money perspective if you can spend some time and intention building your brand really strategically in the first place, and then just keep
Mhm.
using that for the duration of your company. That will build that recognition, and you won't have to put in all the extra effort of communicating when you've made a evolution.
I love it because women, we think like, oh, I have to say something fresh and new. I can't keep saying the same thing over and over. But it's like, yes, you need to keep saying the same thing over and over so that you can be recognized. And that just reminds me of one of my favorite shows that I used to watch, Martin.
Mm.
And they changed the theme song one time. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm not grooving with this. I'm not connecting with this. The theme song is different. Where is the theme song? You know?
Yes.
So,
Well,
yeah.
that is a great example. That is such a good point. Like, yeah, okay. Two things. I totally feel you on the
Go,
theme
go.
song. Like, okay, Dawson's Creek, I rewatched that on Hulu, and I guess there was something where they like licensing whatever, they couldn't use the original theme song, and it threw me
Mm-hmm.
off every single episode. I was like, what is this? Like, this feels so foreign to me, and those nostalgic shows, just like we, again, emotional connection, right? Like, you have that with Martin. I like remember where I was in my parents' basement watching Dawson's Creek, and then when it's different, it's jarring. You feel it breaks the
Mm-hmm.
connection just a little bit.
Yeah,
So that's a
it
great
does.
example. And I also think what you said about saying the same thing over and over again is so key. And it's just human nature. Like, again, when we're the one doing it for years, we get bored. Like, it's like, oh, I need a new way to say this.
Girl.
I need,
Yes.
and of course, like in marketing and content, we can't say like literally the same sentence exclusively forever. Other people will get bored too. But the core message of what you do, who it's for, why it's valuable, that shouldn't change. You can come up with new examples or pop culture or like topical business things to share that message. You can relate it to different topics, but the core of who your business is and why it should matter to people, you just have to say that over and over and over again the whole way. Like, that's the best method to ensure people really get it.
Yeah, I like that. This can probably sound overwhelming to some people, like all these little things that you have to think about, which is why you're there to help them through it so they won't have to think about it all on their own. But some of us
Mhm.
are juggling a lot of things. What do you tell women? Is there anything in particular that you tell women who are feeling overwhelmed or are juggling different things, or advice that you can give about juggling your business ownership with other things that you have going on?
Oh, what a big question. I mean,
Have
in the world of like,
you figured that out yet?
yeah, no, I'm open to suggestions. I have not figured out how to, it comes in waves, right? Like, I've not figured out how to be a scaling, successful business owner and a fun wife. And like, we're renovating our house, there's that. And like, my friends and like, my family lives in another state. And, like, we all have this huge list of things that make us a full person, not just being a
Mhm.
business owner. And I don't want my whole identity to be a business owner. Like, how boring if I died and they're like, well, she had a business, like, I want there to be more going on than that. And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. And I
Yeah.
think it's consistently hard. Like, I guess the only advice I have around that is it'll never get easier, but just
Mhm.
embrace that reality now. Like, I definitely spent time in the beginning of my business thinking like, okay, as soon as I'm restructuring my services, as soon as I have that structure built, then I'll just have a repeatable process and like everything will get easier. Or I'm attracting higher caliber clients now. I'm charging more. Like, now I'll have more breathing room. And that's just not true because, as
Dang
you
it.
continue, like the opportunities get bigger, the bigger clients, a little more pressure. Like, that's what we want. We want things to keep developing and growing, and we want to develop and grow. And as part of that growth, like, there's always going to be effort. The type of effort changes. Maybe you have a little bit more
Mhm.
breathing room financially, but now you're more committed from a time perspective. So I think accepting and almost leaning into the fact that there's always going to be something like this. There's always going to be competing priorities, and just coming up with tactics that work for you about moving
Mhm.
through those competing priorities with, some room for yourself and not getting completely burned out and freaked out about things and whatever that
Right.
means, right? Whether it's taking a walk, calling a friend, working out, stopping work at a certain time, or not working on the weekends, or working on the weekends so that you have Friday afternoon free to
Mhm.
go get a facial. Like, there's no right or wrong way, but I think we're fooling ourselves to think that when we get to this point, it'll get easier. Like, let's just come up with things we can do to support ourselves through the whole journey. There's no finish
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. And we're constantly trying to figure it out. I know like my word of the year is autopilot, right? So when you
Mm.
started saying, "Oh, I'll have systems and this and that," I'm like, "Yes, yes, yes, that's what I want." Do you do you have anything that is, well, you talked about this a little bit before, like, the we and the our, having, people that you've hired outside of you, or some systems in place that, like,
Mhm.
something is doing something when you're not doing it.
Mm. Mhm. Yes, another thing that I'm constantly working on. I mean, one more plug for branding. I genuinely believe this is part of the reward that I see in branding. Like, once you
Mhm.
establish, and I know it can feel like I'm talking about a lot of things that you need, but really, it's just thinking like what your brand strategy is, a few design elements, and a website. But once you have those things in place, you don't have to make those decisions again and again. So when somebody asks you
Mhm.
to come on a podcast or share a bio or like give a quick shout out to your business on a networking call, these unexpected natural things that happen, you don't have to think like, oh my God, what do I say? Or what should I send them? Or, oh, I don't love my website. What could I send them to instead? Like all those decisions have been made. It's built, it
Already.
exists. You're using the same thing over and over again on purpose, like we talked about.
Yeah.
So it can really
Yeah.
alleviate some of that rework all the time
Yeah.
once you have a brand. So that's my plug for that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely believe in learning how to do pretty much everything on your own. If, maybe not everything, but learning how to at least understand what your business needs, what you think is like an important next step, and bringing expert help in. So, like, I have
Mhm.
a VA that I work with that helps me with things that I don't love doing within the business. I have been
Yeah.
outsourcing like execution of my Instagram for months now. So I still come up with the ideas, I still film the videos, but the time it takes to put those things together and edit and add captions, and yeah, that's just a time saver for me. So I definitely think it's not just valuable, it's like necessity to
Mhm.
evaluate the business and think, okay, like what are the things only I can do? What are the things I can bring in help with, and lean into not having to be a one woman show, whether it's bringing in other people or paying for certain softwares or whatever. I think that's really the only way we can expand our capacity. Like,
Right.
we need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even with what you do, to me, having a website, and I don't know if women come to you without having one at all, but some women start
Mhm.
businesses without a website, their brand. I mean, that's a way to have things, set up all in one place, you know?
Yes.
So that's kind of taking some of the load off of you and having things on autopilot and stuff like that. I know
Mhm.
you talked a little bit earlier about some of the women that you work with and what they come to you for branding and everything, but I was like, man, she is like doing therapy and branding at the same time, because you call yourself a hype woman, right? And I love that, because you're really encouraging them and they're coming to you about one thing, but you're lifting them up in other ways too.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we need that, It is an intimate process to when I'm asking like what makes you get up every day and do this? Why do you care about this? Why are you uniquely positioned to be good at this? Why are you positioned to be better than somebody else at this? These are questions that are like a little hard to answer, and maybe we feel like we either don't know the answer or maybe we have an idea of the answer, but we don't want to boast or brag and like, oh, I don't know, how should I say this? So yeah, it becomes emotional in lots of cases to really pull these things out of people and get it down on paper, which is, I
Yeah.
love it. And I think people are often surprised at how those feelings come up when we build this brand work together. Because again, everyone has their own definition of branding. So sometimes people think like, oh, I just need, like, all my competitors have really cool websites. I just need a cool website. Or, I DIY'd all of my logo, and, I just picked colors based on like what was trending 8 years ago. I just need like more updated design. And then when we step back and it's like, no, let's look at this really holistically, right? Like, what are we trying
Mhm.
to achieve? Who is this for? How can we build this so it lasts and does some of that heavy lifting for you, tells your story, makes that emotional connection without you having to do anything. So
Right.
that's what I think most people need without realizing it. And once we start, then it becomes very clear, like, oh yeah, this is so much deeper than was maybe expected.
Right, right. Let's talk about your brand a little bit. Electric Collab. I like that name.
Thank
What
you.
I hear is that it's like vibrant. Like, I feel like, okay, this is going to be magnetic to my audience and it's exciting. And then collab, I think to myself, okay, we're going to be working together. It's not just her telling me what to do. It's,
Mhm.
it's a connected experience. What's the story behind the name? Did I hit it right? What were you thinking?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that's what you think of. Thank What would I have said if it wasn't? Um, yes, that's exactly what I want it to convey. And yeah,
Good.
I mean, the whole idea of kind of electrifying your business, I think that's what branding can do, right? We talk about taking
Mhm.
things to the next level, reaching higher caliber people, feeling a elevated sense of confidence in yourself and your own brand, which makes you show up
Yes.
differently. That is a huge benefit of all of this. So yeah, I really think about it as like electrifying, adding all of this energy to your business. And the collab part, that's exactly right. Like, the raw ingredient to this whole process is you as the business owner. I can't do it without you. Like, what would that be? That would be like a completely made up concept that has no heart and soul and probably performs like crap. Like, it would do nothing. So
Mhm.
I need to collaborate with you and understand you and make you feel comfortable enough to open up to me. And, that hype woman piece and strategic partnership piece, it's not just like fill out this cold questionnaire, I'll create a brand and send it back to you. Like, that's not, I don't know how to work like that. I don't know how to create something that would
Mhm.
be effective like that. It's,
Mhm.
hands on from week to week. Yes, I'm doing all the work. You don't have to put effort into it, but I need your ideas. I need your feedback. I
Yeah.
need your honesty, to really craft something that is going to work and feel really good to you. So yeah, it's super collaborative. And I also need that. I'm an extrovert. Like, I need
Mhm.
humanity. I need interaction. I need to talk. I need people to talk to me. So,
Yes.
it's important to I can't sustain it without that for sure.
Yeah, we need some humanity within your day where your work is not just work, where it's like, this is a part of my life too. And these are other humans that I'm connecting with. And like you said, you work with Jade. She's a mutual friend of both of ours. And Jade is actually going to be on the podcast as well. And she does SEO, but it's like you still have a camaraderie there. You still have a friendship there. And I think that's important for us, especially for us that work from home, to still have those connections with other people, other women, and know that we're not doing this alone,
Mhm.
and that we're
Totally.
not we're not robots and living in a box, that there's
Mhm.
other humans out there, and that's part of the reason why we chose to do what we do, because I'm pretty sure you have other talents, but you
Mhm.
chose to connect with other people in this way.
Yes,
So
I
tell me
agree. It's so
about,
nice.
I saw that your clients have been on TEDx, they've done TED Talks, Good Morning America, the Wall Street Journal, Good and Well, Styles, Bride. You just got a whole laundry list of accolades for your clients. Do you have any cool stories to share with that? Any cool experiences from those women or those connections that they've had?
Yes. One, I feel so lucky. I need to do an Instagram post this week that's just like, look at these fucking women. Look at these freaking women. Like, it's insane. Look at what they're accomplishing. Look at what they're like, the outlets that they're reaching. It's impressive and motivating to me just to work with
Mhm.
people, and help them achieve these things that they want to. So yeah, I mean, one of the most reward, it's like not about me, but it was very rewarding feeling to me. I had a
Yeah.
client early in the business, and we worked a lot on her strategy and positioning. She is a career coach for women who are re-entering, like elevating their career, maybe doing extensive schooling, so like going to grad school with the hopes of reaching a new level in their career, all those pieces. So it's kind of a career and academic coach, and that can be a really broad topic. So a lot of what she struggled with was figuring out like exactly who am I talking to? Do I need to be more specific? Like, should it be exactly people who are going to grad school, people who are getting an MBA, whatever. So a lot of the work we did was around getting clarity on her message, her audience, what was her business voice, how can she craft messaging that really speaks to the unique value that she brings, and also like shows people that she is the bridge to get them to where they want to go in these different circumstances. And after we did that, like a couple months later, she saw this thing basically to apply to get a TED talk. And she did it. And she reached out to me after and was like, I have no doubt that the reason I was able to get this is because I could so clearly articulate like what my business is and why my message matters. And that was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it's her honor, right? Like she did it. She got the TED
Yeah.
talk. I didn't do that. But to have her share with me that the clarity and the confidence that she had representing herself and explaining herself to those people, like that made the difference. And, she did a freaking TED talk. So
I
yeah,
love
things
it.
like I could die, right? It's so cool.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to that sacrifice reward. It's so worth it, right? Like, look what can happen when
Mhm.
you're able to get there emotionally. So, yeah, so cool.
Oh, TED Talk is a dream. That is definitely one of my visions that I have written down.
Ah,
So,
you
yeah,
can
that's
do
so
it.
exciting. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I can. Thank you.
You will do it.
And
Let's say that. You will do
I
it.
will do it. I am going to do a TED Talk. And it's so great I think it's really important for people to be connecting with women like this, like how you and I are having this conversation, because it expands your mind on what is possible and makes it more tangible, more real for you. Like, oh, I can taste it, I can touch it. You know how people say there's only 6 degrees of separation between us all? And
Mhm.
now I can say, I know somebody who knows somebody who did a TED talk. Okay. So that makes me
Yes,
that makes me that much closer. But honestly, by being in the vortex, by being in the bubble, you see that these things are possible for real human beings.
that's
Yeah, I
right.
love that. Yeah. So did you see yourself doing this when you were younger, or what were your little aspirations? I know when I was like 6 or 7, I said I wanted to work at McDonald's,
Mm.
but I definitely don't feel that way anymore. So what were you thinking when you when you were a kid?
Yeah, I definitely never thought I would own a business. When I was little,
Mhm.
I mean, I've always seen myself as being in charge of something. Like my poor little brother, you
Right.
can just feel the bossiness like soaking dripping off me onto him. But yeah, like I pictured myself like in business. I'm from a relatively small town in Ohio, and I'm sure that just came from the fact that I felt like, oh, business people have nice houses and nice cars. I'm like, what is business? And my
Mhm.
dad was in business, and I don't know. I just always thought like I will do that. But the idea of having my own business, like, no, I never had that in my vision. I always thought that being an entrepreneur was either something you were like born with and you knew all along that you wanted to do it, or you just didn't. And I felt like I didn't. I'm not, I don't know, it's all relative. I'm not an extremely risk taking type of person. So that seemed scary, like to go out on your own. Like how are you going to sell yourself? How are you going to, yeah, it was never in my vision. And it happened just kind of a weird turn of events. Like the last job I was working at before I started Electric Collab, my boss at that time was like, what if we did something on the side with like consulting or something? Like it wasn't even really my idea. She brought this to me, and then things quickly evolved and changed, and she wanted to do something else. And then I like had a taste of it. So I was like, oh, wait, this might be amazing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's any lesson in that other than to not hold yourself, like don't get too obsessed or focused with any one goal, because who knows? Like I think being open to avenues that you never expected or that you thought
Mhm.
you would be terrible at, or what, for whatever reason, try to keep a curious, open mind. Like I think we often, especially as women, I think we shut ourselves off to potential opportunities because we've just decided like this is our path. I'm just going to put my head down and work toward that end goal. And of course, we have to do that some too, but trying to keep some capacity for curiosity, I think leads to things that are probably bigger than we could have dreamed of if we were just
Yeah.
working from our own mind.
Yeah, I like that. And just following, the different passions that you have and being okay with making a shift and pivoting. And also one thing I've been thinking about lately is doing something really bad. Being okay with doing
Mhm.
it bad until you can get to a place where you can do it better. Because
Mm,
we sometimes want to hide ourselves until we feel like, we're in a place where we're looking at someone else who's in the business who's doing it. And
mhm.
there's this grand idea of what they're doing, but you're like, I'm not there yet. So then you won't do it at all, kind of
Oh,
holding yourself back.
there is so much power in what you just said. That is so true. And I think it's not only being willing to show up and share something when you're new at it and it's bad and you know that it's not great. It's like doing that, sharing it publicly and putting it out there, I think is the only way to get better, right? Like you can't
Hmm.
um improve in a silo. Like to get really good at building websites, you have to build somebody's website. Like you have to do a few. To get really good at podcasting, you have to get some episodes out there. Like you can't just sit by
Yeah.
yourself and think about improving at it and then, oh, I won't like
Hmm.
share it with the world until I've gotten it to this level. It won't get to that level until you've shared it with the world. And that can be hard, like perfectionism, all the things. We do hold ourselves back. You're so right about that. So I think
Yes.
encouraging people that, the only way forward is to put it out there in the messy early days and just trust that it will get better. It'll improve. And then nobody will care about the ones that you did at the
Right.
beginning that don't match the caliber you're at now.
Yeah, and it'll even aid in your credibility for people to see where you used to be and where you are now
So true.
publicly. I don't know if you have heard of Grow with Joe. She's on
No.
YouTube and she does like these exercise routines and everything. And my sister put me on to her, and I see my sister as like this fitness girly. She runs. I'm not a runner. I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch Grow with Joe because it's going to be too much for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, but then I started watching Grow with Joe, and I saw her when she had just had a baby. She made this public. Like when she was going through the journey, her stomach was all flabby and everything. And she showed it online, and she showed her journey to get to where she was. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I can exercise with her. I can rock with Grow with Joe because she's like, I saw myself in her somehow, and I saw that she was not this perfect thing all along, because you feel
Mm.
like it won't work for me because you're already perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But that's not
Yes.
the case. They
Yes.
had to start somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, it makes you like her
Yeah.
more, right? It makes it so
Yeah.
much more relatable, and it makes it feel like it's possible for us. And I think that's a perfect example. And I do think as professional women, we kind of have this it's been put on us that you have this veil of expertise
Mhm.
and professionalism. And like, you don't want anybody to think that you don't know what you're doing. You don't want anybody to think that you've
Girl.
ever struggled. Like, you just want to show up and be like, no, like, I'm very good at this. That's why you should give me money. Like, you can trust me. I'm an expert. And
Mhm.
really, like, we connect with vulnerability and openness and reality. And, yeah, like, I've heard people share things on a podcast or something or on Instagram that's some intimate struggle in their life. And that makes me want to hire them more for something that has nothing to do with that. But I'm like, oh, like, she's not this fake, like, she's a real person, right? Like, she went through
You hit it.
something, she shared it. She's great at what she does. I feel more connected to her than ever. So yeah, you're so right. Breaking through that veil and just adding that little bit more reality makes a big
Mhm.
difference.
I think that's why people like TikTok so much, because
Mm.
they feel like, okay, I'm getting the real deal on there. And how they're doing they're selling things on there now. It's like the new home shopping network almost, but with real people. I think that's why people trust things from there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're actually connecting with the person.
Yes, more raw. And that we're seeing that trending in Instagram, right? Like, showing up, and it doesn't have to
Mhm.
be so curated. It doesn't have to be so like overly edited. Like, people just
Yes.
want, tell me a message while you're on your walk. Tell me a message while you're doing your hair, whatever, like, just get it out there. Yeah. People are appreciating and connecting with that for sure.
Yeah. Is that your go-to social media place? Is it Instagram or TikTok, or what's your favorite?
It is Instagram. I
Mhm.
have no presence on TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I had tried
Mhm.
at one point. It's not the platform for me, even though I know it's the platform for like literally everybody else. But yeah, I'm on Instagram the most, and I'm learning. I'm working with Natasha Wallstra. I'll shout her out. She's a LinkedIn expert.
Yes.
Yeah, do you know Natasha?
Yes, I've met her.
She's amazing.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm working with her right now to learn about LinkedIn and, share more there. But that's where I am now. What about you? What are your social media platforms of choice?
You know what? My social media platforms of choice are the ones that I listen to the most. And I
Mhm.
actually had to get that advice from somebody else because I was really struggling with it, trying to figure out which one, because I'm like, everybody's on TikTok, you know?
It feels that way.
So I tend to lean towards, and that's why I do this podcast. And my podcast is syndicated in a lot of different places, but I put it mainly on Spotify. That's where I go through, because I'm there all the time.
Hmm.
I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm a podcast girly. So I'm like, hey, if I'm a podcast girly, I need to connect with the other podcast girlies?
Totally.
So, and I'm still working through that, honestly, because I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. And it's just too much.
Hmm.
And I really am working towards finding out, okay, which one am I going to focus in on?
Hmm.
Because I also believe that whichever one you work is the one that's going to work for you, to be
Totally.
honest. So if you hone in on something, that's the one that's going to work for you, instead of stretching and pulling yourself all over the place. And goodness, it's like reminding me of your business, and it's reminding me of branding. It's like, who are you and what is your bubble?
Hmm.
And being true to that bubble.
Hmm.
So this
Yes.
is like some later nuggets for myself that I have to remind myself of when I think about, go back to your brand, go back to your mission, go back to your vision, and
Hmm.
let everything come from there.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's the whole thing. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, all the temptation, I think we all feel that. It's like Pinterest, like, you could be a million places. Most of us do not have the bandwidth for that. And it only
Yeah,
distracts and distills from the heart of it when we try to be everywhere
right.
all of the time immediately. Like, those things can come. Think of your business in the long game. Like, I want Electric Collab for 20 years.
Mhm.
I'll probably get on Pinterest
Yes.
eventually in those 20 years. It doesn't have to be this year. So yeah, what you said about going back to the core, which is your brand, and then making decisions from that versus letting all the external stuff influence your decisions. I think that's how you make decisions that are strategic and that work for your business.
I love it. Tell us what you have to offer, everyone. Tell us about your business, your offerings, what you want people to know, what you want people to connect with you on.
Yes, I'd love to meet anybody who just wants to talk. If I have not made it clear that I love to talk and meet people, let me just say that explicitly. Um, so yeah, I do full service branding. So everything from strategy, messaging, copy, design, full website development, SEO, all the pieces. Because of everything that we've already discussed, I think it's important that it feels really cohesive, really intentional, designed to be rooted in who you are and attract the audience you want. So I think the process is really fun. I work with people individually. The projects are like 8 to 10 weeks, so it doesn't take forever. And it's enjoyable to have all of this magic reflected back to you in a really beautiful package that you can share for years. So if anybody's interested in that or doesn't know, like, is this right for me? Is it the right time? Whatever questions, just book a call with me. My website is electriccollab.com. All the services are listed there. My pricing is there. I want it to be as obvious and transparent as possible. And there's a link to always book a free 30-minute call with me. So if you want to chat about whatever, feel free to grab time and I'll be excited to meet you.
Perfect. Well, everyone, listen, take it from me. Emily is amazing. And just as you've heard us talk about, she's open, she's transparent, she's a real woman. She's going to take you where you need to go. I've definitely learned a lot from this conversation, and I definitely want to keep talking to you more and more and just, growing and sharing, because that's really the way I learn, and I know a lot of other people learn that way, is just learning socially and just having a conversation and connecting with a human and finding those real life nuggets. I'm definitely going to be listening to this again, pulling out little nuggets for myself. Like, okay,
I love to hear
you
that.
know, yeah, there's so many takeaways from this. So thank you again for joining us this morning. I know it's early for you. I didn't even realize it was even earlier for you. I forget that we're all over the place. You're not in Columbia, South Carolina with me. We are all over the world. And that's awesome too, to connect with people who are like-minded, but they may not be in your city. They may not be in your state. They may not look like you, but on the inside, they're like you. So show up in your spaces, show up for things that you love and other people that are doing the same things as you. And you're going to find your tribe and your connections and your language and everything that you need for your personal and professional branding.
Oh, so well said. Yes. This
Yes.
has been such a joy. Thank you for having me. I really was looking forward to it. This was a great
Yeah.
conversation. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you, Jamie.
Thank you for being so open. Everybody check out Emily at electriccollab.com. All right, Emily, stay on. I am going to end the live show. Talk to you later, everyone. Thanks for
Bye.
listening to the Bliss Code podcast.